One Hokie stands alone at the NFL Draft. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking it down with Mike McDaniel from SI.com. You can join him on allhokies.com, writing for, of course, SI as publisher there. Mike, how you doing today?
Hey, what's going on, Mark? How are you?
I'm doing great. So a lot of numbers to digest over the weekend at the NFL Draft. Virginia Tech with one draftee, that of course Dalton Keene going to the New England Patriots, where we'll talk about the fit there. It's pretty obvious what Bill Belichick likes to do with players like Dalton Keene. But before we get to that, just your thoughts about the Hokies having one drafted player versus what they've had in the past as an established football program with a winning tradition. Is that just cyclical based on the roster and the youth of the roster, or more so the state of the program?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it is cyclical. Virginia Tech really only had a handful of draft-eligible guys this year. Dalton Keene was a guy who actually was not a senior. He came out after his junior season as an underclassman, and a lot of people, around the program were wondering if Dalton Keene made the right decision. And Norm Wood from the Daily Press in Newport News, Virginia, wrote a great article on Dalton Keene and a conversation he had with Justin Fuente about whether or not he should enter the NFL draft. And what Fuente relayed to Dalton Keene, in that conversation was, hey, look, you are ready to play at the next level, and you do a lot of things really well. And I think that was apparent when Keene was in Blacksburg. He lined up all over the field, as a traditional tight end. He lined up as an H-back. He split out wide as a receiver. He lined up in the backfield at times as a running back in pass protection sets where he was used as a blocker. Blocking is something that is really, really impressive with Keene, and something that he did extremely well at Virginia Tech, and something that I think he'll carry forward with him into the NFL. And, Keene's a guy who was mocked in a lot of the mock drafts. He was looked at as a late round pick, maybe mid to late fourth round, anywhere from fifth, sixth, even seventh round in some mock drafts. But the fact that Bill Belichick and the Patriots traded up to get him at the end of the third round, 10 picks after they had already picked a tight end out of UCLA, Devin Assisi, it's really interesting that they were able to use that pick on Keene. It kind of shows his worth, at least to the Patriots, and what they think he'll be able to do at the next level.
Yeah, every time we analyze tight ends in this day and age going to the NFL, they seem to have one strength or the other, and they seem to fit two categories. Either they're the inline guy that's an effective blocker but needs to work downfield, or isn't going to be counted on to work in the passing game downfield, or they're the Jimmy Graham prototype. They really don't do a whole lot of blocking. We're going to have to teach them how to block because they've been utilized as basically another wide receiver out from the line of scrimmage, and they work downfield, where this guy Dalton Keene, if all you had to do is watch some Virginia Tech football, and like you say, jack of all trades, and Bill Belichick's going to have a whole lot of scheming and fun, if the man does have fun, working Dalton Keene into that offense, because it's just amazing the various ways in which he has worked as an H-back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Keene is a guy who, a lot of people weren't sure where he would end up, but they knew that he was versatile. And that's one thing that Bill Belichick spoke to, when he was talking to the local Patriots media after drafting Dalton Keene. The one thing that he mentioned, and also the Patriots director, player of personnel, Nick Caserio, mentioned, was the fact that, Dalton Keene was able to do a number of different things at the collegiate level that attracted the Patriots to picking him. And the one thing that Bill Belichick also said was that Keene is going to have an adjustment going from the Virginia Tech system to what the Patriots like to do, but that he's a smart kid, he's a tough kid, he should be able to handle it. Meeting with him at the Combine, I think the Patriots were blown away by how intelligent Keene was, how tough he was, obviously, shows up on film, and what he's able to do with the ball in his hands after the catch, the catch and run type plays, coming across the middle of the field. You can find countless highlights of Dalton Keene kind of slipping out after a block, slipping out into the second level of the defense and finding the soft spot, and then turning it upfield and turning a 5 or 10 yard pass play into a 25, 30-yard pass play just because of his ability to run after the catch at his size, 6'4", 250. The ability to do that is obviously really attractive to a team in the Patriots, at the NFL level, who, they really struggled at the tight end position last year. One of the worst teams in the league in tight end production. That's something that Bill Belichick and the Patriots are not used to having. Obviously you go back through the years, they had Ben Watson way back in the early to mid 2000s when he had first come out of college. You had Martellus Bennett more recently, obviously Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski forming a formidable duo in the early part of the 2010s, and obviously Rob Gronkowski up until 2 years ago. So I think the one thing the Patriots were missing on last year's team was not only the pass catching ability out of the tight ends, but the blocking too. The Patriots really struggled to run the football last year to the level that they have in years past. And a lot of that was due to Rob Gronkowski being gone. And Gronk was missed because of what he did, in the open field when he would catch passes and what he did in the passing game, but he was really missed in the running game and what he was able to do as a blocker. And I think that's something the Patriots were trying to address here with Dalton Keene, because it's something that he was able to do really well at Virginia Tech, was do a little bit of everything. He can block, you can split him out wide, he can run after the catch, he can do a little bit of everything. He's a really athletic, big-bodied kid who translates well to the next level. It's just going to be a matter of if he's able to adjust to the Patriots scheme, which, I mean, look, I think they'll use their tight end a bit more efficiently than the Virginia Tech Hokies did under Justin Fuente and Brad Cornelsen. They didn't necessarily use the tight end in the offense as a weapon as much as they could have, even though Dalton Keene was asked to do a number of things within the system for the Hokies.
Yeah, you mentioned Dalton Keene's work out of the backfield. We've seen him line up all over the place, but for the first time in 2019, they gave him the football 11 times out of the backfield, 21 catches, 5 touchdowns. So that's 59 receptions for the career and 8 touchdowns. And in particular, I remember the Miami game. They probably don't win that without Dalton Keene getting downfield, being lined up in a number of places, them really scheming him into a matchup situation downfield or just cutting him loose and getting him the football. And I believe he scored 3 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah, he did. He scored 3 touchdowns against Miami in a big road game that Virginia Tech needed. You'll remember the Hokies started out 2-2. They were coming off a blowout loss to Duke, in which their season looked like it was going completely off the rails. Virginia Tech ends the season with 8 wins. And a big turning point was that Miami game. So you look at, what Dalton Keene was able to do. Like you mentioned, Mark, the Hokies probably don't win that game without Dalton Keene, especially the start that he had in the first half. You mentioned the 3 touchdowns. He was instrumental in Virginia Tech winning that football game. And, you point to even 2 years ago when Virginia Tech went 6-7. It wasn't their best year on the football field, but they had a pretty big road win against North Carolina, closing it out in the waning minutes of the football game. Dalton Keene had the game-winning touchdown in that play, kind of came out of the backfield as an H-back, caught a pass in the flat, turned it upfield, and was able to get into the end zone there late in that game against North Carolina on the road. That was a huge win for Virginia Tech at the time. So he's made a number of big plays for the Hokies, even though you mentioned, wasn't used as much in the passing game as you would expect for somebody with the skill set that he had. But this is a guy who was a 3-year starter. He started from essentially day one in Blacksburg. And if he wasn't a starter at Virginia Tech day one in 2017, he was on the field quite a bit. So he's a guy who made an impact as soon as he got on campus at Virginia Tech, and a guy whose role continued to evolve. And, you have to look no further than the Virginia Tech coaching staff talking about how instrumental and important he was to the Virginia Tech offense, even when he wasn't catching passes. But I think a lot of Virginia Tech fans will look back on this years down the road, especially if it works out in New England like we expected to with Dalton Keene and how he fits into the scheme. I think a lot of people are going to be looking back at this from the Virginia Tech standpoint and say, man, why didn't they use him more in the passing game? Because I think this is a team and a fit at the next level for Dalton Keene as a 3rd-round pick, where he can come in, he can, 1, contribute right away if he picks up the scheme, but number 2, be used much more efficiently in the passing game than he was at Virginia Tech.
Mike McDaniel joining us from allhokies.com to break down Virginia Tech football and specifically Dalton Keene's fit with the New England Patriots. Mike, we appreciate you stopping by.
I appreciate it, Mark. Thanks.